Uncle Johnny, actually, you are in John Obell channel. Today we have a traveler as well, who has traveled all the way from South Africa, and he's just going to introduce himself and tell us why he decided to come to Australia.
Hello, listeners, everybody. My name is Tony, and Tony Nyundu Buchanan. I am originally from South Africa. I was born in a place called Bushbuck Ridge in Mpumalanga, which is about probably 6 hours, 6 hours away from Johannesburg, the CBD.
Yep.
And then I spent almost the last maybe 10 years of my time before coming over here in Johannesburg, where I was doing my studies and also started working there in Johannesburg.
So you lived in two cities, where you were born and then you moved to
Yeah.
Johannesburg.
Yeah.
Okay, so what made you come to Australia, Tony?
Yeah, look, I felt like I needed more challenge. I spent, and the thing is, I spent most of my undergraduate, actually my studies, in one university in Johannesburg, the
Yeah.
University of Johannesburg. And I felt that I needed more challenge, but
Yep.
the challenge was more, sort of going outside than trying different universities in South Africa. For some reasons, I knew that, I have to be outside of South Africa.
Yeah.
For one thing or two, but also not just for a short space of time, like maybe a holiday or whatnot. But yeah, I had to be outside of the country.
Why did you have to choose Australia? To be outside of your country, you chose Australia. There are so many other options there, but you
Yeah.
decided to come to
Very,
Australia.
very great options. Great universities.
Yeah.
Even there, because I'm doing sociology.
Yeah.
Even their sociology departments are far greater than the university that I'm actually currently studying in.
Yeah.
But anyways, so Australia wasn't necessarily the destination that I
Yeah.
wanted to be in. I did a number of university applications
Yeah.
in different places, New Zealand and University of Sussex in Europe. I've done Manchester. The only place that I was not very keen in going to was the US, because by then there was still a whole lot of political tensions in the US, and there was most killings of the African American people. But even now, it still exists, it's still happening.
Yeah.
But I think there was once a time where the wave was very hectic by then. By the time I was applying, sometime around 2016, 2017, somewhere there.
Yeah.
So I applied also for Australia. But now the difference is that when I was applying for uni, I was also applying for a scholarship
Yep.
to do my PhD. So universities in Europe, most of them, you have to apply for uni entry, and then you have to apply for a scholarship on the side, whereas Australia was more simple. If you apply for a scholarship, you're technically applying for entry into the uni itself. So that was actually more of a simplified thing. And Australia actually happened to respond quicker than all the other universities that I already applied to. But sadly, by the time that other universities were sort of responding to me, I had already taken the offer for Australia and already started with the visa application and stuff. So I ended here.
Okay. Oh, very nice. So I wanted to know, day one in Australia, how did you find your way through? How did you communicate? Who did you communicate with? And how did you go?
I've got a good friend of mine, Joshua Kalemba.
Okay.
He's a great plug.
Yeah.
Joshua Kalemba, I met Josh was already
I
here.
was already here. Okay.
And then Josh had to wait for me at Sydney Airport
The airport?
when I came. And I landed here, it was in the evening around 11:30 p.m. already.
Oh, at night.
At night,
Yeah.
So Josh was already here waiting for me.
Yeah.
So I don't know what you count as a day already, because it's like I had just a couple of minutes, then it's midnight, then I'm actually crossing over to the next
Okay.
day.
Yeah.
But I should say it was such an easy sort of travel for me leaving South Africa, just because of Josh. Leaving Newcastle, which is about 2 hours away, to Sydney, coming to the airport to wait for me there at the airport, and he had actually worked that same day, so I can imagine that he was tired, but he had to wait for me to actually land over, and then I thought we're not actually staying far. And I was so excited. I'm tired. It's
Yeah.
the first time I've been in the longest flight like that one, because I had to sort of connect in Perth and then
Yeah.
from Perth come over here.
Oh, you went the longer way.
It was not actually the longer way. That
Yeah.
was really the shortest way. Because from OR Tambo in Johannesburg to
Yeah.
Perth, and then I had like few hours of rest, and then I came from there then to the side, which is about 5-hour flight from Perth to here. But from Johannesburg to Perth, it was something like 11 hours or so.
Yeah, okay.
So already that was the longest one. And
Yeah.
around that time, Uncle Johnny, it was the times where flights were getting missing
Yeah.
and whatnot. So I had to actually brace myself for the crazy turbulence.
Now you are scared, yeah?
I was scared.
Oh, is the thing going to miss or
prayed the
something?
sinner's prayer.
That was the longest prayer for 11
Prayed the
hours.
sinner's prayer for 11 hours. Yeah, so
Okay, so this guy was waiting for you
Josh
at
was
the airport?
already waiting for me at the
Yeah.
airport, but
I-
now
Yeah.
I thought we were leaving closer. And then I'm excited, and he's like, get yourself ready because we still have like a 2-hour
Yeah.
train. It was a 2 or 3 hour train to travel to Newcastle. I was like,
Oh,
"What?
okay, so he did not pick you by car.
No.
He just picked you and then he took the train to Newcastle.
Yeah. So we
Okay.
took the train from there to Newcastle, which was the longest train that stops. So I
Yeah.
think that was actually the last train
Yeah.
towards midnight.
All stops to
that
Newcastle.
stops at every train station. And then he was like, oh, have a look at that sort of itinerary kind of thing. You'll
Yeah.
see where the train stops.
Yeah.
And I looked at that, there was like more than 30 or more than 50 train stops. I was like, are you for real? Like, this is really going to stop everywhere? He was like, yep. I said, brace yourself. So
Yeah,
it
that
was
was the longest journey.
it was
yeah.
the longest journey for
Yeah.
me, but nonetheless, then we got to Newcastle. Actually, it's more like a dark city than a light city. Coming from Johannesburg, where,
Yeah.
the street lights are very bright, but you get to Newcastle.
Oh,
the
is
street
that
lights
right?
actually-
Yeah.
Yeah.
You mean South Africa's got more lights than you?
The street lights are brighter than
Yeah.
here,
Oh,
but there's a friend who actually wrote a book. I happened to read the book, and she made me actually understand
Yeah.
more of that, which I liked it. So the reason behind that, she actually explained the fact that there's more crime that we've got to
They're
watch
more
out for
violent.
the other side. Whilst this side there's sort of no much crime, so there's
Okay.
no need to put on all street lights.
Oh,
the
yeah.
brightest street lights.
Okay. Oh, now I get it. Yeah.
Yeah, so Uncle Johnny, don't think bad about South Africa.
That was just like okay.
Yeah,
So,
so
you
First dinner was Hungry Jack's.
Yeah.
Already it's no longer dinner time because
Yeah.
already we've crossed over 2 hours from Sydney, we've crossed over to the next day already. So I had to stay by Josh for a night, and
Yeah.
then the next day he took me to the uni so that I can actually get to try to register.
Yeah,
and
registration
do
and
sorts
all
of
that
stuff. And
stuff.
He introduced me to so many African people already, so I wouldn't really say I had a very hectic transition from South Africa to here.
Okay. So yeah, it sounded like you just came very smoothly because already somebody was
Somebody
here
was-
to help
But he
you.
was leading the way.
Now, I'd give you your food as well. So let's talk about food briefly.
Right.
Did you find your food here from South Africa? You mentioned you went to Hungry Jack's
I went to Hungry Jack's.
the first time, but
Yeah.
leave alone that. Did you find your food from South Africa here? Or-
It took a bit of a time to find food from South Africa.
Yeah.
I met a friend of mine who's South African, but he used to live in Sydney.
Yeah.
Sorry, and he was very excited to meet me, and he was starting to tell me about South African food. There's boerewors being sold somewhere at some butchery in Sydney, and there's also a few groceries that you can get. And it took a bit of a time to actually get the food, but I wouldn't really say I had more of a food shock because most of the stuff is stuff that I could actually access in South Africa. But the typical South African flavor that I really, really wanted, it took a bit of a while. But now, there is actually a store that sells South African food, even the same boerewors that we were chasing from Newcastle to Sydney. So like the shopping is much more easier. And I
So
also
now
got
you
to
can
use-
find your food
I can
easily.
find the food here easily. But even though it's not everything, but most of the stuff I can find up here.
Okay. Did you have any language barrier? Of course, you speak English in South Africa, but you know the English in Australia is a bit different. Did you have any difficulty with that language?
With some people I did.
Yeah.
With some people I did. I found that Well, I came across people who said I speak fast, but with me, it's not just the fast, it's also the accent that can be a bit of a barrier for them. But I found that here they speak very fast, and sometimes the words are not coming out very clearly.
Is it your words which are not coming clearly, or their words?
Their words, Uncle Johnny, their words are not coming out clearly. So I struggle, and sometimes I'll just pause and process it. Only a matter of few seconds, I'm like, oh, you're talking about that.
Oh, okay.
So I had that moment, and also I had to start learning even about, the different cultures and whatnot. I remember speaking to someone something about accent. And I'm not sure how accurate I'm going to be about this, but when we spoke about accent, the person actually mentioned the fact that, so we spoke about the fact that socioeconomic standing sometimes is an accent. Poverty is an accent. And the reason for that is because, so when you're poor, what sort of institutions can you access around you that can actually sort of polish you or brush up your thinking, expose you to certain things? And until later on, I came across, there's a group here in Australia that speak about, I think they call the Bogans.
Yes.
My goodness. I lived with a guy who comes from that community, and he would speak, I wouldn't hear a single word. And then it'll take someone in the room who discover that I had nothing. And the person was like, did you get it?
The Bogans are a totally different type of
very
people.
Very different. So, but when I learned more about them and why they call Bogans and whatnot, then I actually got to see the ties that it has to do also with the socio-economic standing. So I don't know how much people knew about it. So like, so the conversation about, obviously we shouldn't raise stereotypes about the fact that poverty can have, but for me it just gave me another different perspective. I have to pay attention to, without more exposure, sometimes your speaking can just be the basic, or it can just be you understanding yourself.
You've actually just enlightened me there. I just know the Bogans, but I didn't know the background of them now, so I'm getting to know why.
Look, there's still more I have to learn about that. There's still more I have to learn about that. So, I'm a sociologist by profession, so I'm interested in, societal groups, how people live, and all this stuff, decisions that people make collectively, and what inspires them, and what's likely to transpire out of whatever decisions people are making. So I had to learn that about the Bones of actually they're very interesting people to learn about, and then I had to sort of learn more about them. And even during the bushfire times that we had, I think last year, there was a time where they came a lot on the news, because they felt like they were not sort of being given the necessary attention that they deserve, and I could hear like the way they speak and the anger and the frustration. I was like, they are very interesting people that they need to sort of also be understood. And understood, I'm talking in a sense than me being judgmental about the way they speak, because I cannot hear them. Because I mean, even as a black person, we go through that, Uncle John.
Yes, I know, like, but
I thought you're saying this, I thought you're saying that. Out of which I believe there's actually some racist logic against the whole idea of I cannot hear you or whatnot. Sometimes people do it with intent to just hurt you, than just trying to understand, okay, what are you saying? Because if I'm speaking fast or whatever the case, chill down and tell me, okay, you want to go slow, or I thought you said this, than saying that, than just, acting very funny.
No, I get the logic about that. Anyway, apart from that language issue, little bit, did you have any other challenge when you arrived in Australia?
Oh, Uncle Johnny. So one day, I've got stories to Africa to tell you. So one day, but I'm just going to minimize it. I was invited for dinner. So being a student, not having, the privilege of eating proper dinner, you always want takeaways and whatnot. So I was invited for dinner by a family one day, and I got so excited to go for dinner. You'd say I starved myself the whole day because I'm looking forward for a great dinner. Only to find out that for dinner, they have fried onions, bread, and sausages. You should have seen the disappointment.
Sausage zinger, I think it's called sisal. Sausage sisal.
I starved myself for dinner. I wanted to come across bread, fried onions, and sausages, and obviously ketchup and tomato sauce. So the disappointment in me,
You got very much
I got very
disappointed.
disappointed because I think the idea of dinner, so South Africa, in South Africa, the most popular word would be supper.
Yeah.
So we call it supper.
Yeah, it's supper
And then
in
when I got here, I
Africa.
found that they're very used to the word dinner. And then when you're back home and then they say dinner and they say we've got guests, you know that even when we've got guests, we're gonna eat food that we normally don't eat
Proper food,
when we don't have guests, right? And we're probably gonna use those utensils that parents keep locking them away.
They're special. They're special
they're very
utensils.
special utensils,
For visitors only.
So coming here to Australia, then I discovered that being a guest doesn't mean look. That's their way of.
They didn't use the term barbecue or something.
Well, they use the term barbecue a lot, and coming from South Africa, we use the word braai.
Braai.
Because we're doing a braai, and then you get here, you hear a lot of them even discouraging the use of charcoal, and just telling you a whole lot of different cancers and whatnot. I'm like, our great grandparents grew up brine the meat from coal. What are you talking about?
And they're still there anyway.
Yeah,
I use a lot of that and I'm still surviving.
Even houses that have got fruits here, you see beautiful fruits on the trees and they just fall in. Like, why are you not eating? Then they tell me about pesticides, all those big names. I was like, oh my goodness. So back home, I don't have time for pesticides. I just pick whatever I see from the tree and watch it and just eat it.
So just going back to this dinner you invited for, which disappoints you very much. What did you do after that? After eating that dinner, did you go somewhere to take away?
I think I ate back home when I got back home because I had, a few stuff that I could eat. And, I ate from back home, but then I had to learn more also about the Aussie culture. The fact that dinner doesn't necessarily mean dinner as it would come in Africa, But again, I had a tactic, Uncle Johnny. Every time when I get invited anywhere and whatnot, I sort of used to prepare myself.
Okay.
Even if sometimes it's not a preparation, but sometimes it's maybe an event that that a lot of people are just going to attend, either be a wedding or be at a funeral. So that coming from Africa, that those will normally take very long. So you cannot say I'm going to a wedding hungry. You might collapse and people are like, you're going to find it.
So you have to prepare yourself,
eat
first
before you go.
Before you go. So that's what you're doing now.
So I have to do that. But I think now I'm assimilated into the culture. I'm fine with it. I know that they can say dinner. So I know they can say dinner. I might find, I might not find. So the mental preparation is actually very good.
That's very interesting. You've got some more ideas which I didn't have before. So I'm learning from you as well. We learn from each other. So Tony, if anybody from South Africa want to come to Australia to study, not only Australia, any other places outside South Africa to go and study or do whatever they want to do, what would you advise them?
Look, so one thing I've never mentioned, I've got a podcast called The Visions and Tones.
Okay.
Which I'll have an episode that speaks about living abroad. And I intend on having a few people that I know that have actually lived abroad. I know that now you're asking about me in particular, but I'm just saying that with intent to let you know that I've got a strategy of actually broadening the awareness of people who are back home who want to go and live overseas. So I think it is important to actually first of all, it is important to make sure that you find your people. And by your people, I mean by race. And this is not with intent to sort of, perpetuate or push the idea of racism. But I think it is important to actually lean more closer to people that you know, people understand you, people understand your culture, people understand your background. It's very much important because for me, when I came here, I had Joshua, and Joshua plugged me with many people. And then I found that people would actually, as we're sitting, they would speak about their experiences, and then I sort of prepare myself for when they happen to me. Can you imagine if I get here and there's nobody, and then everything is just new?
You're lost.
I would struggle to fit in, and I might even think about maybe going back home is the option. So find your people, first and first, that you can actually plug yourself in, and be open. There's one thing, Uncle Johnny, that saddens me. Seeing a lot of different African people here who actually managed to drag the politics from back home, the tribalism and all the issues that were sort of even stirred up by colonization, they drag them into the diaspora. Then you find that when people are here, they decide, oh, you're from that tribe, I'm from this tribe. Back home, we don't get together. And then even here, there's sort of the advancement of that same thing that we don't get along back home. Therefore, we should not even get along here.
Oh, okay. That's very sad.
I feel like it's very sad. And as the fresh generation, we won't actually even do much. Sadly, sadly, there are still people who want to make people who don't speak English to appear as if they're incompetent.
Yeah.
Right? And they do not understand the racist logic about that, because speaking English and having an accent or whatnot doesn't necessarily mean that you're the smartest in the pack.
Oh, no, speaking English is not a measure of being clever.
So I can relate with what you're saying, Uncle Johnny, because at some point, and this is one thing that probably people have to prepare themselves for, and also prepare to sort of defend yourself where possible.
Yep.
I don't defend myself over everything. There's certain things, for instance, if I enter a room and I feel like there's a few people that I can sense the energy, they want to be very negative or they want to provoke me or whatnot, I can actually train myself to zone out as if I'm in the room alone and avoid even eye contact, because I just don't need your energy now. I'm not
you don't need that.
So I had to train myself that coming from South Africa, where we still have like high racism, even now, people would have thought that post 1994, our independence and whatnot, things would have changed, but it seems like from the early democratic administration, things were better, but now with time, things started to actually shake again. The boat started to rock and go back again.
Okay.
So I had to train myself to zone out and avoid looking at some people, especially if I sense that. But the sad thing about that is that also it can make one lose the opportunity, because you wouldn't know someone might be giving eye contact because they want to signal something to you and whatnot. So it's just the unfortunate part. You wouldn't know when you would be a victim, and you wouldn't know when you would be the winner that very same day. So you need to just understand the reality of that. But what you just said, it's something that I also once went through it. And then this second aspect, I'm talking about defense. So one, learn the tactic of how to avoid racist logic. And then two, learn how to defend yourself. Because what you're saying about that people told about an accident, it happened to me before. But with me, it wasn't particularly talking. It was singing. And where a leader came to me and said, oh, maybe it's your accent, I struggle to back you up. Maybe if you can sing like this, try to sing. Do you know how white people sing? Sing like white people so you can sound like this. And it actually hit me.
Sing like white people.
I looked at her and I was like, are you aware how over 25 of years being socialized in South Africa and learning a certain different thing, and now you want to tell me I should start sounding like white people? Is this making sense to you? And the person tried to make other, things, excuses and whatnot, but the saddest thing is that the person never apologized. The person walked away.
Oh, that's the wrong thing to do,
And then obviously this thing came forward because I had to raise it also with other leaders because of other lessons, and I had to raise that thing to say there's a contradicting thing for me here. I feel like something needs to be ironed out. And then I spoke about that, and then, what saddened me most is the fact that even the leaders just apologized and said that is not our values, that's not what we believe in. But I hear you. I'm interested in knowing what are you going to do with the person who said it. And I'm not saying punish that person, but you can call the person and then we have a conversation and make sure you teach that person to understand that
they should be
it
aware.
is not okay. So because even them, they may not be aware of it. I mean, sometimes, for instance, if you happen, I'm not saying that's particularly the case for the person who did this to me, but if you are raised in a racist environment, it's easier for one to actually adopt that culture, and then tomorrow you don't see nothing wrong about it. And it has to take someone to sort of show you the way so that you can know how then can you learn to change your ways.
Sometimes you're not aware that you're doing it.
You're not aware. So even the way in which sometimes we approach people are racist, I think we need to have that kind of a grace to say some of them were conditioned to this kind of mentality, and in order for us to educate them, we may need to sort of calm down in terms of our reactionary attitude and whatnot, and be intentional in terms of our education to them. So intentional in actually being able to help them see what is it that they stand to miss about learning about the beauty of culture that God has created for us to actually blend in the world. So what is it they stand to lose, and if they change their ways, what is it that they stand to gain? Because for really, what's wrong with me sitting in the same table with a white person and she speaks in her own, or he speaks in her own accent and I speak in a way, but we can hear
You can communicate, you can hear each other. Yeah, this is very interesting, Tony. I think we've opened another can of worms.
That one will never stop. And you don't want me to get going. So listen to Visions and Tones. If you listen to Visions and Tones podcast, you'll get a hold of all this stuff.
All of that,
We're talking about it, but this show is not that.
I want you to listen to that. And I think I would like to participate on this, your podcast thing, and then we can...
Interesting.
Yeah,
What would you like to talk about?
We'll talk a lot of things, yeah.
I'm looking forward to it. I'll have you coming in.
Anyway.
And probably you're one of the people who can actually even tell us about the experiences of living abroad, because you've been here for many years.
I've been here for 8 years.
I think it's probably my 4th year now.
Yeah, I've been here for 18 years. So
you've been here for 18 years.
Yeah, 18 years. That's so nice. I can talk a lot about that experience. Anyway. Great. Okay, as we were continuing to talk, Tony, about your experience in Australia, so the question now I want to ask you is the crime in South Africa, especially Johannesburg. How is it? Yeah.
Johannesburg is the hub of South Africa, meaning many people run to Johannesburg, as it was famously called the city of gold. So even our parents migrated from our rural places to go and work in Johannesburg. So now everybody meets in Johannesburg. I think it is actually a small province, but with the most largest population and a lot of undocumented people. So you'll find all sorts of crimes, criminal acts, and most of these criminal acts actually even involve South Africans themselves. I wouldn't necessarily pin it on international people, particularly Africans, same way as we have seen the xenophobic attacks actually doing. So because xenophobic attacks always blames everything on the internationals, particularly of African descent, who actually come in and live in South Africa. I wouldn't necessarily pin it on them, but I feel like there is a need for us as Africa to actually work together to address the issue of crime, not just in South African areas. So there is crime in South Africa, but it doesn't necessarily mean that each and everyone can be a victim. Someday you might not, someday you might be a victim. Now people need to change their perspective, as though that the minute you land already your handbag is gone or your luggage is gone. That's not necessarily the case. There are dangerous places, and then there are places which are actually much more safer. People can visit. I mean, Soweto is one of the places where Nelson Mandela's house is. You know, a lot of tourists are actually there. There's even a bungee jumping area not far away from the Nelson Mandela house and the Desmond Tutu home and whatnot. So there is crime, and it's growing by day, but look, there's just more that all of us have to do to actually eradicate it.
So that should not stop people from visiting?
Oh, definitely not.
So for people from Australia who want to visit South Africa, where should they go so that they avoid, so to say, the crime zone areas? Because I can imagine there's a lot of places.
Trust me, sometimes the crime zone areas are where the fascinating things are happening. Because in Johannesburg you find like the different kinds of food, and not just even South African food, but a lot of, because there's a lot of African people in Johannesburg. Obviously it's in Africa, but when I say African people, I mean African nationalities that are in Johannesburg. So you'll find all different kinds of food there that you wouldn't find if you had to go maybe to Mpumalanga or you had to go to Cape Town. So there's not much that you can actually explore. I know that people love visiting Cape Town and a bit of Durban. So Cape Town, they love the Robben Island where Nelson Mandela was arrested, was kept, the prison was at, and some people love Table Mountain and the waterfront and all sorts of things. But I feel like Mpumalanga is one place I can actually advise people to go to, because it's more like nature places, outlooks and whatnot. You can find Three Randavels, which is actually similar as Three Sisters here. So it's like this natural three mountains that are just sitting next to each other. They look like the African huts, the homes, the houses that we used to build with mud and put on grass on top and whatnot. So they look exactly like that. And or they can visit a place called the Pothouse, which is not even far from Three Randavels. They can visit God's Window. It's a beautiful outlook. You can just hike up the mountain and then see the beautiful view, take pictures, and they can go to even there's a place called Graskop Big Swing. So that's where there's even a gorge. You can do bungee jumping and all sorts of things. You can go to a place called Sabi, where there is a lot of waterfalls and other nice nature places where people can swim, Mek pools. they can even visit maybe the Kruger National Park.
Okay,
That's
yeah.
like our biggest park. We can see in the Big Five, all
The Big Five are
animals and
there,
whatnot. Yeah. So Mpumalanga is good.
Yeah, okay.
One province that actually helps South Africa with the touring industry.
So people go to South Africa, don't fear. Crimes are there, but yeah, avoid where the crimes are.
Always be with people.
With people.
If you're touring with a tour guide, listen to them because they probably know the place.
They will tell you where to go and where not to go.
But do not follow just the stereotypes and say, I'm not going to go because there's crimes anyway. I'm going to die. You can even die being here.
You can die anywhere, actually. Yeah. So I think, Tony, like I said before, I'm going to invite you again so that we can take part 2 of this series because you have a lot of things to say. But before you go, can you just tell us about your podcast?
Yeah. Visions and Tones. You can actually access it on 4 different platforms: Spotify, Apple Podcast, Google Podcast, and Podbean. So the podcast is a multidisciplinary podcast. I speak about everything and anything from mental health to coronavirus and the vaccine, conspiracies, to parent and child's rights, to child raising, and towards gender-based violence, racism, religion, and all sorts of things. Economics, financial intelligence, and
What do we need to do to get the podcast? Do we need the app? What do we need?
Yes, so you'll need Spotify app, which you can pay. I don't know how they cost according to different countries. If you do not have the budget, you can always try Google Podcasts, which I think people are actually streaming for free. It just takes your data. And then you can also try Podbean. I think it's the same. It uses your data. And then you can... Apple Podcasts, I think you have to pay same way as Spotify, but other people have accessed my podcast through other various streams, which I wondered how they go there, like Safari, your normal Google stream, your Amazon podcast, and whatnot. So you can actually get an access to it right there.
Okay.
And
so
the only thing you need to do, just follow, like the shows, download. You can actually download to listen to them later on if you don't want to stream live, because streaming live might be more costly than if you have to download and listen to them later on. That will actually help.
So we just go there, listen to you,
listen to check Tony Yundu, you'll find it.
This. I want to be there. Watch me. This fine day I'll be in your podcast.
You have to.
And we'll talk about controversial issues.
So you want to talk about controversial issues?
Yeah, I'm very controversial too.
I know, and I'm glad that you'll tell us even about is it 18 years now?
18 years. So I'll talk about the day 1 to now. So and again, just follow John Obell channel. And in this channel, we educate people. Or we don't just talk. People who are traveling from overseas, coming to Australia, we tell them where to go, how to live in Australia, and everything. Just subscribe to Angojoni channel, and then you'll get education.
Thank you. Thanks for having me, Uncle
Thank
John.
you, Tony.